Ma'am, this is an airplane, not a daycare. Control your child, or don't fly. The words slammed into Alicia like a punch. She blinked up at the flight attendant, tall, blonde, perfectly made up, who stood with her arms crossed, lips pursed like she'd tasted something bitter. The name on her badge, Lindsay. Alicia's 7-month-old son, Noah, was mid-scream. His tiny voice filled the cabin, raw and sharp. She'd tried everything, rocking, feeding, humming, but he was overwhelmed, and so was she. I'm trying, Alicia stammered. He's scared. It's his first flight. I don't care, Lindsay snapped, cutting her off. Your baby's disturbing everyone. If he keeps this up, we'll have to consider relocating you, or removing you. Someone in the row behind scoffed loudly. Another muttered, typical. Alicia's face burned with shame. Her hands trembled as she searched her diaper bag for the pacifier she swore she packed. She could feel the eyes, the judgment. She swallowed hard, trying not to cry herself. She had been nervous about flying alone with Noah, but she didn't expect this public humiliation, this cruelty. And then, the man beside her shifted. Seat 18B. He hadn't said a word since boarding. Early 40s, white, well-groomed, quiet confidence. He looked like someone who belonged in first class, but he wasn't. He sat beside her, calm, observing. Until now. He took off his reading glasses slowly and looked up at Lindsay. Is this how you speak to passengers? His voice was even but sharp, the kind that makes people freeze. Lindsay blinked. Excuse me? He reached into his carry-on and pulled out a leather-bound folder. Robert King, I'm head of corporate operations for this airline. I've been flying anonymously for 3 weeks, evaluating service across all domestic routes. Congratulations, Lindsay. You've just failed. The silence was deafening. Lindsay's face went pale. I didn't know. I know you didn't, he cut in coldly. But she's a mother, not a threat, and that's a baby, not a nuisance. He turned to Alicia. You're doing fine. Alicia just stared, lips parted, stunned. Noah had gone quiet, sensing perhaps that something powerful had just shifted. And indeed it had. Because this wasn't just a flight anymore. It was the beginning of something no one on board would forget. The tension in the cabin hung like turbulence. Lindsay stood frozen, her red lips parted in disbelief. Around her, murmurs had begun to ripple through the rows, passengers whispering, heads turning, phones slowly rising to record. You can't be serious, she muttered under her breath, barely audible. Oh, I'm serious, Robert King said, slipping his leather folder back into his carry-on. And you've just demonstrated the exact behavior we've been trying to correct from leadership down, dismissing struggling mothers, prioritizing comfort over compassion. You're not just rude, Lindsay. You're a liability. Alicia stared ahead, barely breathing. She didn't know whether to be grateful, humiliated, or both. All she knew was that for the first time since boarding, no one was looking at her like she was the problem. Noah, still nestled in her arms, blinked up at her quietly. His tiny fingers wrapped around her necklace. The moment felt surreal. Lindsay forced a thin, professional smile. Would you like some water, sir? She asked Robert through clenched teeth. No, he said without looking at her. But she would. I'm fine, Alicia whispered quickly, suddenly self-conscious. You're not, Robert replied softly, but you will be. Lindsay hesitated, then spun on her heels and stormed up the aisle. Gasps and chuckles followed her exit. Someone in 21A actually clapped. Alicia sank back into her seat, heart still racing. I didn't expect you to say anything, she said. You shouldn't have to expect it, Robert said. That's the problem. His voice was calm now, measured, but there was an edge to it, a quiet fury behind the poise. This isn't the first time I've witnessed something like this. It's just the first time I couldn't stay quiet. Alicia looked at him carefully. So you really fly around just watching? He gave a half smile. 3 weeks ago, I sat in a first-class lounge while a woman with a baby was turned away from priority boarding she'd paid for. She cried. No one helped her. Not even me. I promised myself never again. Alicia blinked, unsure what to say. She had no idea people like him noticed things like that, let alone cared. He extended his hand. Robert, she shook it hesitantly. Alicia, I'm sorry you were treated that way, he said. You shouldn't have been. She looked down at Noah, who was now sucking on his pacifier, calm as ever. Thank you, she said quietly. A new flight attendant arrived minutes later, kind, brown-skinned, soft-spoken. She brought Alicia a warm blanket, a bottle of water, and even offered to hold Noah while Alicia rested. No one raised their voice again. But as Robert looked out the window, expression unreadable, one thought hung heavy in the air. This flight had just exposed more than bad service. It had exposed a system, and Robert wasn't done watching. Alicia hadn't spoken in 20 minutes. The plane had leveled, the cabin lights dimmed, and Noah had drifted to sleep with his tiny head nestled against her shoulder. But her heart hadn't stopped racing, not since Robert spoke up, not since the world shifted in one sentence. Robert had returned to reading something on his tablet, but he hadn't said much either. Not until he glanced sideways and asked, "Are you okay?" Alicia nodded quickly. "Yes, I will be. I think." Her fingers clutched the bottle of water the new flight attendant had given her. The kindness still felt unreal. Then, out of nowhere, she said, "I wasn't even supposed to be on this flight." Robert looked at her again. "What do you mean?" Alicia exhaled a slow breath, her voice barely above a whisper. "I booked a cheaper flight. It got canceled last minute. I cried at the ticket counter. This was the only one left." She chuckled bitterly. "Figures, the most expensive ticket I've ever bought, with money I didn't really have." Robert watched her closely. What made it so important to get on today? Her eyes welled up, but she didn't blink them away this time. "My mom had a stroke last night. She's in the ICU in Atlanta. I'm her only child. They don't know if she'll make it." A silence fell between them, not awkward, but heavy. "Real." Robert set down his tablet. Alicia continued, almost to herself. "Noah hasn't even met her yet. She's only seen him on FaceTime. I didn't want it to end like that. I didn't want that to be all she had of us." Robert's jaw tightened. He glanced at Noah, still sleeping, then back at Alicia. "I'm sorry," he said, and he meant it. Alicia smiled faintly. "It's okay. I didn't mean to dump that all on you." "I asked," Robert replied simply. She stared at him. Not many people asked. Then, something unexpected happened. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small business card. Simple. Matt. One name, Robert King. Executive Vice President, Skyworld Airlines, and a direct number, handwritten. "If you need help getting back, or anything." She hesitated, then took it with trembling fingers. "You don't have to." "I know," he said, "but sometimes the right people sit beside you at the wrong time." Alicia couldn't reply. She just held the card, blinking down at Noah. Then the plane shook. A soft ding. The pilot's voice crackled through the speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, please fasten your seatbelts. We've hit unexpected turbulence." Alicia gripped the armrest. Robert stayed calm. But as the lights flickered for a split second, something in his face changed. Because Robert King wasn't just here for passenger evaluations. He was running from something too. The turbulence passed. But the silence between Robert and Alicia didn't. Alicia's fingers still gripped the armrest. Noah stirred, whimpered, then fell back asleep. Her heart slowly returned to its normal rhythm, but something had changed. Not in the plane, in him. Robert's jaw was tense. He stared at the seat back in front of him, not blinking. Whatever storm had just flickered in his eyes hadn't come from the sky. "You okay?" Alicia asked gently. He didn't answer right away. Then, without looking at her, he said, "My daughter would have been 2 this year." Alicia blinked. "She died, 18 months ago. Heart defect." He paused. "We thought the surgery went well, until it didn't." Alicia's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her fingers instinctively tightened around Noah. "I haven't flown commercial since the funeral," Robert said, voice flat. "I avoided babies, mothers, airplanes." He finally looked at her. "But then corporate kept pushing me to do this, undercover evaluations, connect with real people, blah, blah, blah. I said no, for over a year. Then I woke up one morning and realized I couldn't keep hiding behind a desk." Alicia swallowed. "So this flight isn't just about airline policy?" He gave a dry smile. "It never is." They sat quietly for a moment. Then she said, "I'm sorry you lost her." He nodded. "Thank you." Alicia glanced at the business card still in her lap. "So what are you really looking for, Robert?" He chuckled. "That's the thing. I thought I came here to catch a few rude employees, write up a report, clean house. But now," he looked at Noah, "I think I was meant to sit beside you." Alicia blinked back fresh tears. "Why?" "Because you reminded me of something I forgot," he said. "How strong mothers are, how easy it is to overlook people who are fighting silent battles." Then he turned to her fully. "You can tell me what you need, or you can keep running on empty." Alicia broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just tears, quiet, exhausted, grateful. Because no one had asked her that in a long, long time. She wiped her face quickly. I just want to get to my mom, that's all. I want her to meet Noah. Robert nodded. Then she will. The seatbelt light turned off. The pilot announced clear skies. A tray of snacks rolled down the aisle. But in row 18, something else had settled. Peace. Maybe two strangers. Maybe something more. Alicia was starting to feel okay. Not great, not fine, but something like safe. She had just finished feeding Noah, who was now quietly playing with the zipper on her hoodie, when Lindsay, the original flight attendant, returned. Her smile was wide and fake. Hi there, she said with forced cheer. I just wanted to apologize if I came across a little strong earlier. Alicia tensed. Robert didn't look up from his tablet. I was just doing my job, of course, Lindsay continued, but sometimes, things get misinterpreted. Alicia stared at her. You told me this wasn't a daycare and threatened to remove me. Lindsay's smile twitched. Right, and I'm sorry if that upset you, but let's not make this a problem for everyone. Okay? Robert's head lifted slowly. Excuse me, he said. Lindsay blanched. Oh, Mr. King, I wasn't speaking to you. You were speaking over her, he replied sharply. And now you're trying to rewrite what happened, so I'll forget it? She straightened. No, sir, I just thought. You thought wrong, he snapped. What you should have done was take accountability. Instead, you're minimizing it to protect your job. Lindsay's smile finally cracked. I think it's best you return to the front, Robert said, calm and clear. I've already emailed your supervisor, and yes, I'm documenting this conversation too. Lindsay turned red, then pale, then spun around and walked off without another word. The passengers in the surrounding rows sat very still. Most were pretending not to listen, but their silence said everything. Alicia leaned her head back against the seat. I should have recorded her. No one ever believes women like me. Robert looked over. That's why I'm here. Alicia didn't respond. She just stared forward, holding Noah tighter than before. 10 minutes later, another flight attendant, this one much older, with soft eyes and a gray streak in her bun, approached. She bent low. I'm so sorry about what happened earlier, she whispered. It's not who we are. At least, it's not who we should be. Alicia looked at her. The woman's face held no PR smile. No script, just shame and sincerity. Thank you, Alicia said softly. The woman reached into her apron and handed Alicia a small envelope. For your troubles, she said. From the crew and from me. Inside was a $200 flight voucher. Alicia blinked. Robert leaned in and whispered, Not enough. Then he tapped something into his tablet. Alicia didn't ask what, but the glint in his eyes said, This isn't over. The plane hadn't even landed yet when the damage control began. Alicia was standing in the aisle, gently rocking Noah in her arms, while passengers stretched and reached for overhead bags. Robert remained seated, watching silently. He hadn't touched his tablet since the incident, but his mind hadn't stopped working. Lindsay was nowhere to be seen. Then a man in uniform boarded, mid-flight. Tall, black, calm eyes and a crisp Skyworld blazer. He moved with the quiet authority of someone above everyone else on the plane. His eyes scanned until they landed on row 18. He walked directly to Robert. Mr. King, he said, nodding. I got your message. Robert stood. This is Alicia, the woman your team tried to humiliate in front of 150 people. The man turned to her, face softening. Ma'am, I'm truly sorry. I've already spoken to the cabin crew. Lindsay has been removed from her position pending a formal investigation. Alicia blinked, stunned. I didn't mean for anyone to get fired. You didn't, the man said gently. She did. Someone nearby muttered, She's one of them now. Alicia turned. A passenger, 2 rows behind. A white woman, expensive clothes. Her tone dripped with disdain. Them. That word landed heavier than any insult. Alicia looked down at Noah. For a split second, shame crept back in. Like maybe she had taken it too far. Like maybe she was the problem. Then Robert said, loud enough for that woman and the whole cabin to hear. If them means a mother who held her head high while the world tried to make her small, then yes, she absolutely is. The woman looked away. The tension snapped like a thread. A few passengers clapped again. This time, not out of pity, out of respect. After landing, Alicia expected to disappear into the crowd. Just get to her mom. Go back to struggling quietly like always. But as they stood in the terminal, the Skyworld representative stopped her once more. "One more thing," he said. "Robert asked us to do something." He handed her a folder. Inside, a first-class round-trip voucher to Atlanta, unlimited luggage, valid for 12 months, and another envelope. Inside, a check, $10,000. Alicia gasped. "No, I can't accept this." Robert stepped beside her, speaking low. "It's not charity, it's acknowledgement." "For what?" "For surviving what no one saw and doing it with grace." Tears welled up in her eyes. She tried to speak, but her throat closed. So instead, she just hugged her baby tighter. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel small. The smell of antiseptic hit her the second she stepped into the ICU. Alicia held Noah tighter as she walked down the sterile corridor. Her heart pounded in her ears louder than his tiny hiccups. Room 209 was just ahead. She hadn't seen her mother in 2 years. They had fought hard when Alicia got pregnant. No husband, no plan, just disappointment. Her mother had said things Alicia never forgot. Now, none of that mattered. A nurse met her at the doorway. Young, brown skin, kind eyes. "Are you Alicia?" She nodded, voice caught in her throat. "She's been stable for a few hours now," the nurse said. "Vitals are still touch and go, but I think she's waiting for you." Alicia stepped in. Her mother looked impossibly small in that bed. Machines blinked. Tubes ran from her arms. But her eyes fluttered open, slowly, and for a moment, just one, they locked eyes. Then her mother smiled. Tears blurred Alicia's vision. She crossed the room and lowered Noah into her arms gently. "Mom, this is Noah." Her mother looked down at the baby, eyes brimming. Her voice cracked. "He looks like your father." Alicia let out a trembling breath. "He's strong, like you." They stayed that way for minutes. No talking, no fighting, just breathing, just holding. And in that silence, something that had broken long ago quietly began to mend. She left the hospital just before sunset. Her mind was still spinning from the reunion, the emotions, the exhaustion. Noah was sleeping in his carrier. She sat on a bench outside, watching the sky turn gold when her phone buzzed. "Unknown number," she answered. "Did she smile?" a familiar voice asked. It was Robert. Alicia exhaled. "She did." "I'm glad." She looked around. "Where are you?" "Gone," he said. "Just landed in Chicago. Another flight. Another report." "You disappeared so fast. I wanted you to have your moment," he said. "You didn't need an audience." Alicia paused. "Will I see you again?" Silence. Then, maybe. Something in his voice told her this wasn't part of the script anymore, that he hadn't planned for her, that maybe she had become more than just a passenger in row 18. "I never got to say thank you," she said. "You did," he replied. "The moment you stood tall and didn't shrink." She smiled. "You sound like someone who used to be small once too." Robert didn't answer, but then he said, "Check your email." Before she could ask why, the call ended. She opened her inbox. One new message. Subject line, "Next flight, first class, anytime, anywhere." Her eyes welled up, and beneath it, a line she couldn't explain. "Some people enter your life just to remind you how high you were meant to fly." 3 weeks later, Alicia stood in the middle of Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, holding Noah on her hip with one hand and clutching a small suitcase with the other. She had worn her best blouse, fixed her hair, even applied a little lipstick. Not because she was going somewhere, because someone told her she could. She hadn't planned to use the ticket, not yet, maybe never. But today, something in her heart had shifted. Her mother was recovering steadily. Their relationship was healing. For the first time in a long time, Alicia felt like the world wasn't pushing her down. It was lifting her. She walked up to the Skyworld first-class counter. The line behind her was long, but the attendant barely looked up. "Name?" she asked flatly. "Alicia Morgan," she said, her voice calm. The woman paused, looked again at her screen, then looked up at Alicia. "Oh, one moment, please." Alicia's stomach flipped. "Is there a problem?" The woman stood, called over a manager. They whispered briefly. Then the manager approached with a smile, the kind that was genuine. "Miss Morgan," he said, "you're clear. In fact, your name's on the list." "What list?" she asked. He leaned in. "It's internal. There's only a few people on it. When they show up anywhere, we treat them like gold." Alicia blinked. Behind her, someone groaned. "Figures. Special treatment." She turned around calmly. "No," she said. "It's not special. It's overdue." The manager nodded proudly. "Follow me." As she boarded the plane, her eyes scanned first class, not for the comfort, but for a familiar face. He wasn't there. She sat down by the window, Noah already tugging at the seatbelt. Then a flight attendant approached. Tall, dark curls, friendly smile. "Miss Morgan," she said, "there's a note for you." She handed over a small envelope, sealed with the airline's logo. Inside, a handwritten message. "Alicia, if the skies ever feel too heavy, remember this seat. You earned it. Not because you cried, but because you kept flying anyway. Robert." Alicia pressed the note to her chest. She looked out the window, eyes brimming, and whispered, "Thank you." Noah gurgled happily beside her, chewing on his blanket. The engines hummed. The cabin doors closed, and as the wheels lifted off the ground, so did something in her spirit. Not just because of Robert, not just because of justice, but because for once the world had seen her, and it hadn't looked away. Have you ever experienced unexpected kindness in a moment of struggle? Share your story in the comments. If Alicia's journey moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that uplift, heal, and remind us we're not alone. Thanks for watching.